Hey, hey, hey. Those voices you hear in the background are my lovely wife and sister who are joining me tonight, who are also tuning in. Whoop, whoop. I hope didn't mute my own feed, so you're going to hear that come through. But how's it going, everybody? There is a little bit of a delay, you'll notice, between what I'm saying and what you're hearing. But thank you so much for joining the live happy hour, the pre-race happy hour, the celebration to get ready for the New York City Marathon, the 50th anniversary of the New York City Marathon, and my first ever. This is going to be my third ever road marathon. I am very, very excited, but especially excited to be taking on the New York City Marathon. I have been wanting to run this race for 7 years, for over 7 years at this point, and finally got in. I know a number of you who are tuning in, or who I sent this invite to, had donated to the charity to help make this dream a reality. For those of you who aren't aware, I am running this race in support of Athletes to End Alzheimer's is the name of the team. The charity is called Caring Kind, that donates all of their proceeds to, it's a charity that supports caregivers of folks with autism. So most of the funding for the charity goes towards those caregivers, but a number of the donations also go towards the research itself. So just a huge thank you to all of you for supporting this cause. Very, very excited, and I see some chats coming in, so I want to take a look to see who all is joining us. I see my mom is on. Marcelo, thank you so much for joining. I so appreciate it. Brandon as well, running the LA Marathon on Sunday. Good luck to you. That is also an excellent race and one that I would like to do one day. So I hope you have an incredible experience. I will definitely be thinking of you on Sunday. But before I forget, this is happy hour. So I'm going to pop into, I intentionally set up my recording studio right next to the new beer fridge, so I hope you enjoy this setup. This is my first time doing the live broadcast in the new apartment, so had to add a new piece of hardware to the mix, but I'm gonna stick with a Dogfish Head Slightly Mighty. It's a low-calorie IPA. It's nice and light, very easy, but for those of you who are not aware, I've got a little bit of a cold going on. I woke up with a cold on, I think it was Monday. So I have just been trying to fight it with everything that I can think of. Lots of fluids, lots of electrolytes, lots of vitamin C, and just doing everything that I can. I haven't had any alcohol this week except for a hot toddy that I had a little bit earlier, and now the Dogfish Head IPA. But it's nice and light, so I figure it'll go down easy enough. And then just going to continue to rest and relax and look forward to Sunday. Checking the chat again. Brian is on. Brian is also running the marathon on Sunday, so huge shout out to you, Brian. We will be bunking together on Saturday night getting ready for the race, so looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. And it has been so helpful to have someone with experience. Brian has run the race in the past as well, and this race is just so massive. There is just so much going on at this race, so many logistics, and so I cannot tell you how helpful it has been having someone like Brian with knowledge of how everything runs to keep me much more sane and keep me a little bit calmer and more collected going into the race. So Brian, looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Hannah's on as well, my little sister. Are those your real eyes? They look too blue. That's just the quality of the camera, I think. I'm using my GoPro camera. I think I'm coming at you in 4K maybe, nice and clear, and I'm sure the blue of the microphone brings out my eyes. Jessica Rudd, fellow Bib Brave Pro, how's it going? You are in your New York City hotel, ready to go. Very, very excited to toe the line with you on Sunday. I know we might have crossed paths at the expo. I know you had a 6 to 7 block. I ended up going to mine a little bit early. I tried to keep an eye out for bright orange. I was wearing my Bib Brave hat as well, but didn't see you, but we may have crossed paths at the event. But this is, so for the happy hour, just in case anyone wants to know how it's going to go, I mean, I can kind of talk through my strategy for the race, what my plan is, what the timeline looks like. But if any of you have any questions about the race, feel free to shout them out. Or as others have done, if you're planning to run the race, let me know so that we can celebrate you. I can celebrate you, but everyone else can wish you luck in the chat as well. Because obviously we all need it. It's going to be a long day on Sunday running with, I think, 30,000 other runners this year. It is going to be Very, very exciting. Ultra Dad, how's it going? Welcome to the party. Thanks for joining. I know you've been running some incredible races as well recently, and we ran Mohican together. For those of you who don't know, if you watch my video, you saw Ultra Dad in the video, but he completed that race, his, I think, second 100-miler, if I'm not mistaken, second completed 100-miler, so huge shout out to you. Thank you for joining as well. What transport am I taking? That is an excellent question, and something that this is probably the number one thing that I'm thankful to have Brian on my side for, with the knowledge of how things have run in the past. So I am taking the ferry. Brian and I have a hotel in downtown Manhattan around Wall Street area. Also, thank you for Brian for taking care of booking the hotel and everything. But we will be staying down there Saturday night and then going down to take the ferry across to Staten Island. My ferry time is supposed to be 6 a.m. My start time is 9:55, so that's obviously a pretty large window. Brian's ferry time is actually at 7, and from his experience, they don't check super closely what your registered ferry time is, so I'm going to try to piggyback on the 7 a.m. ferry, so hopefully I don't have as much downtime at Staten Island, because I think that's one of the things I'm more worried about is just having room and time to warm up before the race. I usually like to do a nice slow warm-up mile, and just not sure that that's going to be feasible given the setup of kind of the starting area. But being able to shorten that window of how much time I'll have to be outside, kind of in the cold waiting to start the race, I definitely want to try to keep that as short as possible. Riley, thanks for joining. For those of you, Riley's got a great YouTube channel as well. Ultra Dad does as well. Make sure you subscribe to both of them. But Riley just completed the I-35 challenge, which is 2 back-to-back marathons on back-to-back days. And Riley, you're going to have to forgive me because I've only watched part 1, which was the Kansas City Marathon. I haven't watched part 2 yet. My sister is giving fist bumps because she lives in Kansas City, but I can't remember what was the second marathon that makes up the I-35 challenge, but completed those 2 back-to-back. Twin City, my sister is yelling from off camera, was the second marathon. So it is hard enough to run 1 marathon. To do 2 back-to-back on pretty hilly courses is an unbelievable achievement. So big shout out to Riley for completing the I-35 challenge. And I see my dad and stepmom are on. Thank you, Darla, for joining. Ultra Dad, if you're still on, do you have any races coming up? I know you've talked about a few things like what's next, what's in store for you, to let the group know. I kind of use you as my benchmark for what ultra marathons I should look at, toying around with the idea of revisiting some races in 2022. We'll see how that goes. I obviously, for those of you who know, I usually run with my buddy Todd, and so he is itching to get a rematch against Mohican. It's still a pretty bad taste in my mouth. I know that we have unfinished business, but I'm not sure if I'm ready to go back. Would love to get back to Bandera. That was just such a fun race, but certainly have those on the horizon. But I'm very excited for being back to road racing. I did the Smutty Nose Half Marathon at the beginning of October, and then obviously New York City Marathon this weekend. It's just such a different animal to prepare for road races compared to ultra marathons, and I love both of them. But for the last 2 years, I've been kind of splitting my time between them, which I feel like has meant kind of not giving either of them the full attention. And so it's nice. I would really like to improve in the marathon, and I feel like to do that, I really have to commit and focus on hard marathon training blocks, consecutive hard training marathon blocks. But I also feel like I could throw an ultra in there every once in a while. Who knows? Am I crazy? Let me know. But I feel like that would be possible. But I'm really enjoying marathon training. I'm just eager to see what I can do. I haven't run a road marathon since spring of 2019. 2018, spring of, I don't remember. 2019, I think March maybe was the last marathon I ran, Rock and Roll DC. But it's been a while, and there's just so many challenges when it comes to marathon training. And every time you train for one, every time you run one, you learn more. And so I feel like running more marathons consecutively will just help not only continue to improve my fitness, but also to improve my knowledge of how I react during the marathon, how I can improve my strategy and tweak those little details. So who knows? We'll see. Have you ever considered the JFK 50 miler? Question from my mom. Oh, and I also see Riley corrected, Sophie, it's not the Twin Cities Marathon, it is the Des Moines Marathon, which, fun fact about the Des Moines Marathon, then Mom, I swear I'll get back to your question. The Des Moines Marathon actually hired me to do some video work for them this year. I looked into briefly running the race because I got entry as part of the deal for creating the video content for them, but basically created a video on their beer sponsor is Boston Beer Company, which also owns Dogfish Head, being from the lovely state of Delaware. Dogfish Head, obviously one of my favorites. But it was a really cool video because they just wanted me to make a video about training, marathon training, specifically for the Des Moines Marathon, but how you can coordinate or work beer into that and highlight their beer sponsor. So I got to put together a super fun video on how to run on beer, what it means to run on beer, how to train for a marathon and incorporate beer into your training. So that video, I think, is posted on their Facebook. I might see if I can share it on my own channel as well, but I had a lot of fun working with them this year. So back to my mom's question. Excuse me. Have you ever considered the JFK 50 miler? I have heard of it, and people have recommended it to me, but I've just never looked into it that much. It's on the Appalachian Trail, which I have an affinity for the Appalachian Trail. I think that's the right word. There's some, having like grown up hiking on the Appalachian Trail with Boy Scouts, having always had the kind of romanticized idea of wanting to take the time to through hike the trail. I'm just enamored by people who do that and the adventures that come out of people's adventures on the Appalachian Trail. I love any opportunity I get to hike the trail, to run the trail, etc. So I would think I would be down to try it out. We'll just see when it's in the cards when that might happen. My buddy Jamie from high school asking, if you see a penny on the ground, will you pick it up? No, and I fear that all day long I will have bad luck. But there's just not enough time to worry about pennies, and if I collect too many, it's just going to weigh down my shorts, and nobody wants to see that when those come down at the 20-mile mark. So leaving all of the pennies on the road. Playlist for your Staten Island ferry ride. Let the river run on repeat. So that's one of my big to-do list items for tomorrow, is to create my race day playlist. I take that task incredibly seriously. I've put together probably 4 or 5 playlists of ideas of songs that I might incorporate onto that playlist. But usually the way that I try to work out my music for race day, especially for long distance races like the marathon, it's going to start easy and just kind of a good rhythm, something that I can stay comfortable in, but I'm not going to push myself, because I have to remember that not only does the phrase "it's a marathon, not a sprint" really ring true for these races, but New York City Marathon specifically, it's very flat and easy per se for the first 20 or so miles. There's some bridges and some little hills and things in there, but then the race finishes uphill for the last 4 or 5 miles. And so just really have to check in and remind myself to take it easy, even though the course may seem easy and flat. And then also just with the sheer number of people who will be out cheering me on, cheering runners on. Just have to make sure that I don't get caught up in it, that I stick to my plan and keep it easy. So easy music to start. I always listen to Jimi Hendrix' Star Spangled Banner as the first song as soon as I cross the starting line. Again, it just kind of like helps get me in the mood and the emotions of that and everything. And like, because that's such a tradition at races, it makes me feel like the football players going out onto the field before the game. So love listening to the Star Spangled Banner. I'll probably put some Frank Sinatra in there, honestly. Maybe My Way, maybe New York, New York. We'll see. But throw some of those songs in there. But just songs that are fun, have a good beat to them, that I can just enjoy. And again, remember to keep myself calm and run at a little bit slower of a pace. And then probably around the halfway point, you'll start to see, and maybe a little bit before, a transition from like fun, happy-go-lucky music to like angry, screamo, faster pace, hardcore rap, all kinds of wild songs that'll start to go in. And especially as I get closer and closer to the finish line, that is just going to get angrier and angrier. That's the music that motivates me to just dig deep and ignore any pain or fatigue I might be feeling and just push through the finish line. So that's kind of an overview of what the playlist might look like. I'll maybe publish the playlist so people can see the final choices that I make in terms of specific songs, but that kind of gives you a layout. But also addressing Darla's question of playlist for the ferry, this is a tricky logistical piece for the race because obviously I'm going to want to take video, getting ready in the morning, the journey to Staten Island, all of that good stuff, in the starting line, in the corral, etc. I want to get plenty of footage to put together the video after the race, but also might want to listen to music to help distract myself, etc. Want to text people to let them know how things are going. I'm only saying all of these things because all of that is a drain on my phone battery, and I want to make sure that I conserve battery because I need my phone to last for the entire race, and then some. Once you finish the race, it takes a while to get out of Central Park. I'll probably stick around near the finish line to watch other folks finish as well, so phone dying is a real concern, especially just with how much time there is before the race, how much time there is to play around on my phone, dawdle, do all kinds of stuff that's just going to slowly drain the battery. So that is a very real consideration that I am very aware of preparing for Sunday morning. Post-race celebration plan. Very excited. We are going to a bar called Ethel's. If anyone is going to be in New York City and looking for a place to hang out, it is a go-go dancer bar on the Upper East Side. My friends Vince and Alexis were the ones who first introduced me to that bar. We've been there for quite a few celebrations in the past, and so that is going to be our celebratory bar of choice. I'm also realizing now as my ears are heating up that I don't need the headphones on because I'm not listening to anyone, so I can just put these down and just keep talking nice and easy. And now I can hear my wife and sister better if they have any comments or concerns to contribute. Riley says, I definitely run the Des Moines Marathon in the future. I really would like to. Another thing, I think this is a challenge you're doing, Riley, running the marathon in every state. I just feel like these grand challenges, these grand goals like that, like the World Marathon Majors, like hiking the Appalachian Trail, seem so intriguing to me because of the amount of time and dedication it takes to complete goals like that. That's a huge reason why I run specifically, is just because, yes, you can have short-term goals in running. You want to set a new PR. You want to perform this, whatever the metric might be that you want to measure yourself against. But you can set these long-term goals where, like I said, wanting to train more consistently for marathons. I have kind of a goal in mind for myself for the marathon, but I know it's not going to be this marathon on Sunday. It's not going to be the next marathon. It's not going to be the one after that. It's going to take a few years and a lot of hard work, consecutive, strong training programs to meet those goals. And something about that just really attracts me to those goals, having to really hone your focus and zero in on kind of like a specific goal for that long of a period of time. So kudos to you for officially taking on the marathon in every state challenge. I think that's an incredible goal, and I know you've made quite a bit of progress so far. And the next one, what borough are you most excited to run through? That is very hard just because I feel like I'm excited for different parts, for different things about each borough. So I think Brooklyn is one of the first ones that stands out just because I've heard about coming off of the Verrazano Bridge into Brooklyn and just the roar of the crowd being starting the race silently, not silently with all the runners, but with no spectators on the bridge, and then just coming into thousands and thousands and thousands of people screaming for the runners on the course. I just feel like is going to be something that I will never forget. So I'm very excited for that. But then also coming back down through Manhattan, I mean, the finish line coming towards Central Park, even though I know it's going to be brutal, the excitement that's going to be building at that point, I think is going to be incredible. So I'd say probably those two are the ones that I'm torn over. But then also I've heard coming off of the Queensboro Bridge, I guess that's coming into Manhattan, so that would be Manhattan as well. But I'm excited for the cheering sections, the crowds, the energies in those different parts of the course. They blast New York, New York over the loudspeakers for the start of each wave. That's good to know, Brian. This is why I have you around, to remind me of the logistical things that I don't know of, the past experience coming in clutch. So I will probably leave that off of my playlist since it's going to be playing at the starting line. Oh, and Lauren knows someone who shared their race playlist on Instagram, rolling the dice, letting friends add to their playlist. I would never do that. I might do that as like, if I wanted to collaborate on a running playlist, I would consider doing that, but never for a race playlist. Like I said, I have very specific moods that I want to hit at different points in the race, and giving that control over to someone would be a nightmare. I have also made the mistake, like I said, I organize my playlist very specifically, and I've made the mistake of accidentally putting it on shuffle at the start of a race, and that is a nightmare for me. And so I would never let anyone have control over what music is going to be playing in my ears during the race. Better include a Mumford & Sons song since Marcus Mumford is going to be running the race. If I could time it so that I'm seeing him when that song came on, that would be incredible. But yeah, honestly, that's Mumford & Sons is one of those, like, they have the vibe of maybe an early in the race song where they have upbeat, it's fun, it keeps you loose, it keeps you relaxed, you can get into it, you can sing along to it for that early race distraction that I'm going to need. And a translation, he doesn't trust me. Hannah and I do have a shared playlist on Spotify, and it's one of, I think, the greatest playlists in my Spotify, but it is not the vibe for the marathon. And I definitely would not trust you to not just put some insane music. Like I think you went through like a Chinese folk music phase for a while you were listening to. I feel like those might work their way in. I just feel like it is opening up the floodgates to some real weird surprises. Lauren, nervous about the rolling Central Park Hills at the end? Absolutely. So I've only run 2 other road marathons in the past. This will be my 3rd. Both of the races that I've run in the past, usually around like the 22-mile mark is where I would say I hit the wall. It's usually nothing brutal. Like, it's not like stop me in the tracks hitting the wall, but that's where the fatigue in my legs becomes incredibly noticeable, and it's very hard to focus on anything but how sore I am, how tired I am, etc. And obviously, if you're just running on a gradual uphill, that's just going to accentuate that desperation, that feeling of I'm exhausted, I just want to be done. So I'm nervous. I'm hopeful that the roar of the crowds, everyone around, will help motivate me and help be a good distraction during those points of the race. I'm also hopeful that having done some ultra marathons, my legs will fare a little bit better because I've done a lot of elevation, a lot more than I had done in the past. So I'm hoping my legs will just hold up a little bit better. But that being said, I haven't done any kind of elevation or anything recently, so we're just going to have to kind of wait to see how that goes. Sophie, I think we do have a shared playlist on Spotify. I'm like 90% sure. No. I'm going to check. I think we do. No. I'll check after this. I can't check right now, so sorry. Nobody can prove anything. Have you ever taken a ride on the SIF? I don't know what the SIF is. Staten Island Ferry is what I'm being told from my New York City correspondent. And no, I have not ever ridden on the Staten Island Ferry. I've never been on any of the ferries here. I get pretty seasick, not gonna lie. I'm not too worried about it on the ferry. As long as I can be out in open air, I think I should be fine. But yeah, just avoid any kind of boats at all costs, unless it's like we're gonna go hang out on a small boat to have fun. I'm usually okay as long as we're not just sitting and rocking. But no, I'm not super excited about the ferry ride in the morning. Is Dogfish Head compensating me for the product placement? I wish that they would, for sure. I guess Boston Beer Company, owners of Dogfish Head now, if you want to throw me something, I would be happy to represent you more fully, although they did compensate me for the partnership recently, working with the Des Moines Marathon, so that was lovely. Not only monetarily, but also a ton of like Dogfish Head koozies, Sam Adams koozies. I think I also got a Dogfish Head pop socket if anybody wants it, because I won't use it. Some sunglasses, some hats, some t-shirts, all kinds of stuff. And this beer was actually free for working on them for that race. I'm still working through the care package full of free beer that they sent. So perks for sure. So I guess you could say they have compensated me for this specific product placement since it was free. Ooh, and Hannah, shots fired. the siblings chat going on right now in the live YouTube. Sounds like Sophie and I's playlist is just not as good. Which, if it doesn't exist, then it couldn't be. But I'm pretty sure it exists. I even have one with Dad.
Is it the blended thing?
Yeah, blended.
Oh, we have one of those.
Yeah, you idiot. Oh, so much shade. I told you we had one. Get out of here.
Sorry.
Everyone, let the record show that Ryan has never been wrong in arguments that you've witnessed with his older sister.
Debatable. Yes.
Arguments that you've witnessed. They've only witnessed this one,
that.
so
I
I'm
think
only.
that we both understood the question differently, so I'd say we're both right.
She understood the assignment.
Spoken like a true loser. All right, so what shoesies are you going to wear? So if you want to see a full list of all my gear, I actually just posted that breakdown. But the shoes that I'm going to wear, I'm very excited about. They are the Saucony Endorphin Speed 2s, the second model of those shoes. This is the first race that I'm running where I bought a pair of shoes specifically for this race, which is one of the reasons that I'm so excited. They're like a performance pair of shoes. They're not carbon plated. That's a big movement in like in all races now, but especially I feel like at the marathon distance, everyone's putting out their carbon plated racing shoes. Those are very expensive, and I've also heard if you're not running at like the elite level or like a super fast pace, basically an all-out sprint, not sprint, but an all-out gait, like your full fastest pace, you don't feel the same return as with the carbon plated shoes, so it's just not worth the investment. And I also didn't put in, my training just didn't go as well as I would have liked to for this race. We were just so busy, life got in the way, etc. It hasn't been as strong of a training block, so I couldn't justify spending $200 on a pair of shoes just to run this race. The Endorphin Speed 2s have a nylon plate instead of carbon, significantly cheaper. And I heard incredible reviews about the Endorphin Speed 1s. People who have run in them love them. A lot of them rank that shoe over the carbon-plated shoe that they have. And so just heard a lot of great things. I started running in Saucony Kinvaras last year and absolutely fell in love with those shoes. I think they're my favorite shoe that I've ever run in. And so wanted to give another Saucony a try. And also Saucony, if you ever see this and want to throw me some free shoes to review, I would love to do that for you. But the Endorphin Speed 2s, incredibly lightweight. I think they're like a little over 7 ounces, if I'm not mistaken. Very lightweight shoe, very springy foam, have the nylon plate in them as well. If I could get the attention of my lovely assistant wife, if she wanted to grab the shoes, I can show them to you. So you can see they're in this room, in the office next to the desk. But they're really cool. They look really nice. The color is beautiful as well. And I will show you in just one second. What did you decide about your singlet? Will I wear long sleeves under it? This is not yet. This is another very one of the last, it's going to be a last minute decision. The weather looks okay. It's going to be low. It looks like it's going to be like high 40s, low 50s at the start. I went for a run on Monday, I think it was, and it was like 54, 55 when I went for a run, and I ran in a long sleeve and I was warm, and I could have run in a tank top. I figured that'd be comfortable. So that was kind of my test where I was like, I could probably just do tank top. As it gets into like the mid to high 40s, I'm a little bit worried about the chill, but also it's just going to continue to get warmer. So right now I'm leaning towards just the tank top. I might do tank top and a light pair of gloves, which I can always just ditch at some point if I get too warm, but leaning towards just tank top, no sleeves underneath, but may change that depending on what the weather looks like. Lauren, do you want to throw me or come demonstrate the shoes? So these are the shoes. Saucony Endorphin Speed 2s. So like I said, they have the nylon plate they have the nylon plate through the sole. They're angled forward. I think they call it like their speed roll technology, but the whole shoe is basically just designed to promote you rolling forward. The only thing, again, if you want a full breakdown, I have that video I just posted, I think last week as well. But the thing that is noticeable about these shoes is, especially once I hit like my half marathon pace, and I'm hoping my marathon pace as well, as soon as, like, when you take a step, I'm a heel striker, so I hit on the heel. And as soon as I hit like the midway point, right as I start to cross over towards the toe, the shoe just feels like it naturally wants to roll and kick off the toe and kind of like spring forward. So that's kind of the feeling that I notice in these shoes. Again, they're incredibly comfortable, super, super lightweight. So very, very excited to take them for another spin. I destroyed my PR in the half marathon when I wore these shoes. I think part of that was just going into the race underestimating my fitness level a little bit, but I also think the shoes get some of that credit as well, so I'm hoping that they are as successful tomorrow on Sunday at the New York City Marathon. What else do we got? What are you going to wear to keep warm before the start? Also a last-minute decision. I have some ideas. I have like an old pair of sweatpants that I don't care about losing. I'm going to go through my old sweatshirts, but I'll probably just end up wearing sweatpants, a sweatshirt, the gloves that I'm going to have, and maybe an old beanie as well, just to make sure that I'm keeping plenty warm. I thought about like maybe a long sleeve, honestly, maybe a long sleeve under the sweatshirt as well. I'd rather be too warm and have layers that I can get rid of than run the risk of being cold at all. I absolutely do not want to be cold at the start. I don't want to spend time standing around shivering. I would rather be too warm and be able to shed layers and not have to worry about that. So we'll see. I'm going to err on the side of more layers just to be absolutely sure that I'm good to go. How concerned are you about pooping when you finish the race? An essential question that could only come from my little sister. Not really all that concerned at all. I've never had too many issues with that after the race. I've had issues during runs, but normally if I'm having that issue, it's because of a nutritional mistake that I made before the run. As long as I'm going into a run well hydrated and well fueled, I usually don't have any issues. Obviously, surprises can happen, so it's good that there will be plenty of porta potties along the course for any kind of emergencies, but that is not a concern of mine. I feel like I've perfected my pre-race foods, all the things that I'm going to have that will digest and be good, so not worried about that. More worried about just my body shutting down and shivering uncontrollably once I get to the finish line and having to stumble the mile or so to get out of Central Park and find my spectators. So remains to be seen what state I'm going to be in once I get to the finish line. Oh, and Mom is chiming in with those will look great with the red, white, and blue socks. For those of you who aren't aware, there is a competition going on between two pairs of socks that I am trying to choose between. They are both toe socks from Injinji, like probably mid-calf height socks. I have yellow ones, like fluorescent yellow, that will obviously just match the shoes, and matchy just looks good, and when you look good, you feel good, and when you feel good, you run better. But the red, white, and blue, although they do clash, it's the Stars and Stripes. They're a great looking sock. They are the socks that I wore for the Smutty Nose Half Marathon where I set a PR, so I think they are lucky as well. But on the YouTube video I posted that goes over my race gear, people are commenting to vote which socks I wear, and ultimately I'm going to leave it up to you all to decide which socks that I go with. So if you want to vote on that, you can just go back to my channel, find that video, and comment with which socks you think I should wear. Laura with a tip, recommend getting an old bathrobe to wear in the village before the start if it's going to be cold. Yeah, I'm definitely planning on layering up. Unfortunately, I just threw away my old bathrobe when we moved, so I do not have one of those, but I think I do have. I have to look through my stuff. For a while, I was saving the leftover like foil blankets that they give you for starting race so that I could bring them to the starts of races when it was going to be chilly. So I have to go through and see if I have any of those. But yes, definitely a concern, wanting to make sure that I am plenty warm and can stay warm before the start, especially since it doesn't sound like running a warm-up when I want to run a warm-up is going to be feasible necessarily. So we got to see how that's going to go. Your new PR for the half deserves another shout out. Great job at the Smutty Nose Half. Thank you, Mom. That race, if you didn't watch that video or haven't heard me told that story before, like I said, I think I went into that race underestimating my fitness level a little bit. I had Just come off of training for the Mohican 100 miler. Obviously, ultramarathon training is completely different than road race training. Not a lot of speed work, mostly focused on just endurance and mental endurance especially. But there's a lot of strength work as well, which I think contributes to faster running times, faster racing times. So didn't really know what to expect going into the Smutty Nose half. Just went into it saying I was going to have a good time. I was going to run for fun. I was going to push myself. But not too crazy. Was just going to kind of see how I felt. And as soon as I started that race, I just felt phenomenal. I think in my head, I was like, I'll start at like a 9-minute mile and kind of see how that feels. That felt incredibly easy. So I think within the first mile or two, I was already down to maybe I started at 8 and worked my way down to 7. I think that's what it was. I started at 8. Within the first couple miles was down to like 7:20. And then much closer to 7-minute miles by the finish, but just felt so good throughout that entire race. So, I mean, here's hoping that happens during the New York City Marathon. I don't know that that's going to be the case. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think I will definitely be struggling a little bit by the finish, but just looking forward to the experience and seeing how everything's going to go. Who am I going to fangirl over? That is
asking because of your Des Linden encounter last year at the virtual.
Yes, so my wife is asking because I ran the virtual New York City Marathon last year, and I just ran loops around Central Park to make up the marathon. And Des Linden was running I think it was her first 50K. If I'm getting the timeline right, she did a challenge in October where she ran a mile. I think she ran on the first she ran a mile, on the second she ran 2 miles, on the third, etc. And so I was running on October 31st, and she was doing 31 miles through Central Park. I did not know she was going to be there, and it was literally like as I was walking to start my run, I saw her pass by and was like, I leaned over to Lauren and was like, I'm pretty sure that was Des Linden who just ran by. And obviously she was running significantly faster than I was, so she looped me a couple times during her run, so got to see her a handful of times. And sure enough, I didn't get to see her finish, but my wife saw her finish. She had her whole cheering squad out there, her husband out there, drank champagne out of her shoe at the finish line, which is a lovely tradition that she does. But she'll be running this race, so I'm excited to kind of, I obviously won't see her or be tracking anyone during the race, but excited to see how she does. How Alexi Pappas does, how Shailene Flanagan does. There are a couple pro runners that I'm looking forward to seeing how they fare during the race, and just ultimately looking forward to seeing how people do for the first New York City back since COVID and the 50th anniversary. I think because of the magnitude of the race, I feel like a handful of runners are really going to go for it, and so just excited to see how that turns out for them. Will you get Abby Wambach's autograph for me? Probably not. I don't think I'll see her. Sorry. My apologies. I keep looking over here because that's where, if you see Sophie Day or Lauren White commenting, they are sitting right over to stage left. The Peanut Gallery. Also, if you hear me sniffling, it's because I have a little bit of a cold, and I have been talking a lot nonstop, so my throat is starting to get a little bit sore. So I'm going to kind of be alternating beer and noon, and you may hear me clearing my throat. But the good news is, yesterday was the first day I started to feel better. Today, I feel even better. So I think Saturday and then Sunday, I think I'll be good to go for the race. But obviously, it wouldn't be preparing for a big race if you didn't get a little bit of a cold ahead of time. All right, so I think I'm caught up on questions, so I'll go through some other details, or I guess I'll kind of go through like what my strategy is for the race, what my plan is. It's kind of similar to my goal for Smutty Nose, but with a little bit more structure. Basically, my fear is, especially in a marathon, starting faster than I can maintain. That's for sure my biggest fear. And again, having not very much experience with the marathon, having only run 2 before, and having not run one in the last couple of years, I just don't know what to expect in terms of what paces that I can maintain. So my initial goal when I started this training was to hit 3:30. That was my goal. I don't see that happening. Just maintaining an 8-minute mile for this whole race doesn't seem like it's going to be in the cards. So I think what I'm going to do is try to start around like between 8:30 8:30 and 8:45. Honestly, probably closer to 8:45. I think my last marathon, my average pace throughout was like high 8:40s, low 8:50s, if I'm not mistaken. So I think I'll probably try to start close to there, like 8:45-ish, see how I'm feeling, and just regardless of how good I feel, force myself to stay around that pace for the first couple miles, make sure that I'm comfortable. I don't think I'll run any faster than like 8:40, maybe 8:30, in 8:35 in the first half of the race. Again, I want to cross 13.1, cross the halfway mark, feeling like my legs are still relatively fresh. And marathons that I've run in the past, I've usually tried to negative split, so I'll try to do that again. We'll see if it's possible. But once I get to, I would say probably like 15 or 16 is where I might try to, if I'm feeling good, if I'm feeling up for it, maybe try to ease closer to like the 8:20s. So we'll see. Again, it's up in the air how I'm going to feel, what this is going to look like, how everything's going to go. So I'm going to err on the side of caution and try to stay towards those higher paces. And then it'll really just depend on how I'm feeling throughout the race, if I want to try to speed up. But again, knowing that the end of the race is going to be the most challenging part. So the last thing that I want to do is say, oh, I feel great, and push too hard early on and then just fall off completely at the end. So that's kind of the difficult balance. But I'm looking forward to this being another learning experience, just to, again, help me figure out what my strategy should be moving forward. Every marathon that I run is just another one in the bank to help educate me to hopefully perform better at the next one. So that's kind of the overall pacing strategy as of now, and then we'll take a look Sunday afternoon to see how it played out for me. Full send, like Molly Seidel. Yeah, oh man. We were talking about her earlier. I did a Zoom call with some of the donors for my fundraiser earlier, right before this, and we're just talking about how incredible she is. She's another one that I'm very excited to see how she performs at the New York City Marathon. And also on that note, for those of you who are on, so I've hit my fundraising goal. I'm running for Athletes to End Alzheimer's. It's a team for caring kind. Hit my goal, but obviously just continued to push that. So I've raised $3,500. I've upped my goal to $4,000. If you want to contribute, the link for that is down below. If you want to just donate to the charity, or through Sunday up until race day, I'm selling these New York City 2021 sweatshirts. So they've got my logo on the front, and then they've got a map of the course on the back. So those are $40. All of the proceeds the entirety of the proceeds are all going towards the charity as well. So the sales are going to remain open through Sunday as the pre-order, and then I'm ordering them on Monday. So if you'd like to buy one of these or donate to the charity, the links for that are down below. Todd is on, and Todd, you missed Ultra Dad. He was here earlier. Not sure if he's still on, but I mentioned that you had been teasing the idea of returning to Mohican. I am certainly not taking it off the table. It is out there as a possibility, but I'm really enjoying road racing again and focusing on road racing. I would really like to. I think I will probably end up dedicating spring to marathon training. I don't think that rules out doing both. I certainly think that could possibly be in the cards. But I missed road racing. I missed dedicating time to the grind of road racing, especially marathon training. It's brutal, but it is so rewarding at the end. And so especially since this training cycle didn't go as consistently or as well as I would have hoped, I'd really like another shot. And I think I do so much better in the preparing for spring. I do better training through the winter than I do in the summer, just because so much of like summer plans and all that stuff just gets in the way. So we'll see. Mohican 2022. I know we have unfinished business there. I would like to get back there, but we'll see if it's 2022 or if it's further down the line. But I know you're itching to get back too, so we'll have to see how it goes. It's like, let me check my notes to see if I have anything else to go over. I think so. We touched on strategy. For timeline, I think I mentioned it earlier, but I am slated to start at 9:55 is when my group starts, wave 2. I'm specifically in Corral B, so I think I should start pretty close to the beginning of that wave, hopefully. Also down in the description for this video are links to the app if you want to track me on the run, as well as the website tracker. And I think both links are specifically tied to my bib. So if you click on that, it'll automatically add me to the tracking either in the app or the website. So if you want to follow along, you can do so there. I realized I didn't say like a goal time when I was going through my strategy. My current PR in the marathon is a 3:53. I definitely think I can beat that. Knock on wood, I'm hopeful that I can beat that. I think 8:40. So that's kind of like the last goal. I would love to just beat 8:53. A little bit better than that. I feel like 8:45 is in the cards. I feel like that's attainable based off of my performance at Smutty Nose. Again, understanding that that's only half the distance, so it's hard to base this race off of that one. But I'd like to think 8:45 is reachable for sure. I would say those are really the two goals that I'm focusing on. And then like the all-star goal of if I'm just feeling really, really good and can just like turn on the gas at the end and fly through those last few miles, then we'll see what I can do. But ultimately just incredibly excited for this race. Timeline of like other activities and stuff for this weekend. So I mentioned I'm starting at 9. I'll be on the ferry at 7, staying downtown before the race. But tomorrow night, if you want another chance to hang out with me in a wilder and probably more exciting manner, a good friend of mine from high school does a live stream every year for 24 hours straight. It's a charity live stream raising money for the Children's Miracle Network hospitals. So another incredible cause to raise money for. But he does, him and a friend, they're part of the Kame House Party podcast. If you're a Dragon Ball Z fan, it's a fantastic podcast you should check out. But they do this 24-hour live stream where basically every hour they're streaming, like playing a different video game or recording a live episode of their podcast, doing different things throughout. And they have different guests throughout the show as well, visiting for each hour. So I will be joining them from 6 to 7 tomorrow. The link for that is down for the event is also down in the description for this video if you want to check it out. We are going to be playing one of my favorite games from, I think it was like college and grad school we played, called Lego Marvel Superheroes, which is just absurd. So if you want to see us crack a couple beers and play a fantastic game and just see some crazy banter, the other reason I would encourage you to join is because he started his live stream at the same time as I started this one. The difference being that I'm going to go to sleep and rest and recover and then join him at 6 tomorrow. When I join him, he will be 22 hours into this live stream, so I am sure it is going to be an insane experience, but I am looking forward to every minute of it. So it's all going to be on Twitch. The link to the event is below. Also, if you wanted to donate to that charity, that link is below, and there should be a link on the event page that will take you to the live stream, but that is going to be from 6 to 7 tomorrow. If I see a friend on the course, will I say hello? This is an interesting question just because I guess it would be when I see spectators, I will definitely try to wave. I doubt that I might see someone I know while running. I mean, odds aside of that happening, even if they pass right by me, the chances of me noticing them are very low just because, especially later in the race, I get such blinders on. I mentioned my playlist earlier in the stream that the music just gets angrier and angrier the later in the race it gets as I just get more and more internal and just zero in on just finishing the race. And so depending on when I see people, I think I will be in various levels of my ability to actually focus and recognize what's happening outside of just the immediate goal in front of me. So if I see people, if I notice them, I will do my best to give a smile and a wave and muster the energy to look better than I will probably be feeling. But it all will depend on if I can even pull myself out of whatever zone I'm in to notice them. I know a couple folks from the Bib Brave crew are going to be at mile 5, I think it's 15 and 16, so I have that one written down to make sure as I'm coming over the Queensboro Bridge before I make that turn that I'm mustering the energy and ready to look good for them. If anyone on here is going to be out spectating and you're tracking me, please try to get video of me, because obviously I won't be able to record on the course, and I want to put together a race video, so the only footage that I'll have during the race is footage that I get from folks who are watching along. So if you will be spectating, please try to get some video of me if you can. Make sure that it is in landscape mode so that I can use it for YouTube. I can work with anything, but it'll just look a little bit cleaner if it's in the horizontal or the landscape mode, but relying on the fans to try to get some footage of me out on the course for the final post-race video. Ooh, celebratory brew choice on Sunday night. Laura knows the questions to ask. I think there are a couple answers to this. One, I am part of Michelob's Team Ultra, and I do truly enjoy Michelob Ultra at the finish line of a race. And part of my motivation to join their team was because they are the finish line beer so at least I think it's changed now. A lot more breweries are starting to get involved in the endurance sport world. But especially like when I first started running marathons and distance races, Michelob Ultra was always the sponsoring beer at all of the events. And then they started Team Ultra. They started to kind of gear a lot of their branding towards a more active lifestyle. And so I just give them a lot of credit for recognizing the opportunity there and for kind of taking a chance on that and representing so many races, helping to fund so many of the events that I love. They were a partner with the Rock and Roll Race series for a while, which I loved. And so huge fan of Michelob Ultra. And so I do like to support them when I can and do enjoy drinking those after the race. But the second part of that is that my sister and I started our own tradition. We ran our first marathon in coastal Delaware. I think it's the Coastal Delaware Running Festival is the name of the race. But down in Lewis, Delaware, where Dogfish Head is founded, they're in Milton, but in southern Delaware. And so we stayed at the Dogfish Head Hotel for that race, and we shotgunned their Sea Quench Ale at the finish line. And that kind of started the tradition of shotgunning Sea Quenches when we finished our marathon. So I have some Sea Quenches saved. I will be giving them to my spectator group to hopefully have for me once I cross the finish line. If they don't drink them first, it's a salty beer. It's got black limes and sea salt. It's a Goza, I think it's a sour. It might just be called a sour ale, but very, very refreshing, very tasty, and it does have electrolytes. So technically, it is rehydrating you once you cross the finish line. So probably some Dogfish Head, probably some Michelob, and then we are going to Ethel's Go-Go Dancer Bar afterwards. And so whatever they have on tap is what I will be enjoying, along with all of the worst possible foods that I can find on their appetizer menu. What else do we got? Remember in How I Met Your Mother when Barney ran the marathon, do you picture yourself being a Barney on the subway on our ride back to Rockaways? I don't think so. This question came up before as well, just with how I think my mobility is going to be moving around after the race. And at least after my first marathon, I was destroyed. I couldn't move. And I mentioned we were staying at the Dogfish Head Hotel, which had outdoor hallways and stairs, and it got pretty cold overnight. And I ran into an issue when we were walking. Part of it was definitely alcohol related, being a little tipsy afterwards, but ran into the issue when I was trying to walk up the stairs, and my hip flexors, my IT bands, and my hamstrings were annihilated after that race. And so trying to climb the stairs, hip flexors is what I especially remember, were so tight and were seizing up. And as I was walking up, it was pretty cold, and so I started to shiver, and the shivering was causing my hip flexors to kind of like to pulse, to spasm. And every time it did, it was excruciatingly painful, and basically my legs just locked up. And I had to, like, with my hands, move my legs because I just started shaking uncontrollably, which caused insane pain in my hip flexors. And so since then have focused a lot more on strength training to try to prevent that in the future, but haven't had issues nearly like that. And usually can move pretty good after a race. The night after, I'm usually pretty stiff, but usually the morning after, I'm moving pretty good. So I'm hopeful that I will not be a Barney after this race. I'll be moving okay after the finish line and through the next couple days. And I just have to make it through. I'm working from home on Monday, and then my wife and I and our family are flying to the Bahamas on Tuesday, so I will be recovering in style come Tuesday morning. I think we'll be in the Bahamas by like noon on Tuesday, so great day. All right, other stuff that we got, went through timeline, went through tracking, went through the charity live stream tomorrow. I think that is everything that I had on my agenda. All the stuff that I wanted to announce. I know I did some plugs for the charity, for the fundraiser, things that I'm most excited about the race, Burrows that I'm excited to run through, portions of the race that I'm most excited about. But I guess the last thing I would say, I can't remember if I mentioned this again. I said we did a Zoom right before this with folks who had donated to my charity before. But I first had the idea to run. The first time I ever thought I would like to run the New York City Marathon was the summer of 2014, living in Boston at the time, and just was seeing all the plans for the race, and just got very, very excited by all of the photos, all of the advertising for the race worked on me 100%. And I texted my then fiance, now wife, saying like, hey, I think I would love to run this race one day, having never run a marathon before. So that was 2014. I moved to New York in 2015, so the dream of running the New York City Marathon started to look a lot more realistic since I was in the area, but just never pulled the trigger. I think I entered the lottery a couple times and didn't get in. Never did the 9+1 because we live just far enough outside the city that I've actually never run a New York Road Runners race before, so didn't do the 9+1 to get in. And then last year just decided, you know what, I've been putting it off for too long. I'll do the lottery. If I don't get in through the lottery, there's plenty of great charities to run with as well. And I mentioned I'm running with Athletes to End Alzheimer's. That's a charity that's incredibly close to my heart, to my wife's heart as well. We've both had grandparents that we've lost to Alzheimer's. So very excited to be running with them. Excited. I knew I wanted to run with a charity, but was very excited that I found a team that was so meaningful to me. And then obviously with COVID and the race getting postponed, and then the uncertainty this year of not knowing whether or not it was going to happen, I'm just so excited, overwhelmed, and just so ready to see what Sunday is going to be like. This has been a long time coming, and just cannot wait to get there. I know a bunch of people who are have run this race in the past, or who have experience spectating it. I've spectated it a couple years as well, and just know how moving it was to be on that side of the fence watching folks run by, and just can't even start to imagine what it's going to be like being on the other side. So I'm so excited to run this race. It's the first World Marathon Major. We'll see if I start going after more of those stars, but this one I think will go down in history as easily the greatest marathon I've run so far, and maybe ever will. So very, very excited for Sunday morning, and cannot believe how close it is. We're like a day and a half until we get there. And it's been so fun. Obviously, like I said, everyone who supported me on this journey and helped me reach that fundraising goal, but just the amount of support I've had from friends and family in preparing for this race, especially how much difficulty I had during training, meeting my runs. I got to take this time to give a huge shout out to my wife, who just knew, I think, how much I was struggling, not only to get the runs, but how much that was like eating away at me mentally, that I was having time making time for the runs. And so her ability to like remove obstacles and continue to motivate me and pressure me when I needed to be pressured without kind of like pushing me when I didn't need to be pushed, navigating that nightmare of a mental state that I was going through. There have been just so many people who have made such a significant difference in my ability to continue to train for this race, to get out there early in the morning, going back to commuting into the city and where I'm working now. That meant my weekday runs needing to wake up at like 4:30 in the morning to be out running by like 5:15. So that was a brutal change. And so just adjusting to that, there's no way that I would have been able to do it without everyone that I've had in my corner. And so just very excited to be running this race for myself, obviously on Sunday, but to carry all of those folks with me as well. It's just going to make it that much more incredible. So a big thank you to all of you for your support along the way, and for joining me tonight to keep me going for the last few hours before race day. And just more great comments. Happy that you're running with Athletes to End Alzheimer's again. Thanks, Mom. Great fantastic team. They have just been super fun also. The Christian Doucette, who's running that team, the communication has been great throughout, obviously, this entire process of the race being postponed, how everything's going to work, always checking in with each individual athlete, so that's been huge. Laura, I hope you do run another one. I have a feeling that as soon as I cross the finish line, I'm going to want to sign up for it again, knowing how cool of an experience this is going to be, and already the amount of fun that I've had just in preparing for this race, I feel like this definitely won't be my last New York City. I'm gonna melt my sister's cold, dead heart with this. That's my goal, honestly. I'm just doing it to to melt your heart and hopefully help it grow a few more sizes as we are getting close to the, I'm not gonna say it, season, because we have Thanksgiving, which is my favorite holiday, and it deserves its own time before we move on to the next one. But all of that being said, it is 9 o'clock, so I think I am going to go ahead and cut it off. Thank you to all of you for joining me. It means the world. I have a lot of fun with these, and so I appreciate all of the questions and all the feedback. If anything comes up, please feel free to reach out throughout. Like I said, there's the live stream tomorrow as well. There's a link for that down in the description if you want to join. That's going to be at 6 p.m. playing Lego Marvel Superhero. My fundraiser is obviously going to continue to stay open past the race. If you want to donate, the links for that are down below, as well as for the New York City sweatshirt orders. And then just keep an eye on my Instagram. That's probably going to be the best way to keep an eye on what I'm doing this weekend, how things are going, where I'm at in New York as I get closer and closer to Staten Island. So thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you are enjoying a lovely beverage as well. And I will see you around. Cheers, everybody.